Hey, so a few months ago, I put out a viewer video poll as to what theory in My Hero Academia I should tackle next, and an overwhelming amount of votes were casted in the direction of me tackling the theory, where is Deku's dad? So when we go inside the bar, there's gonna be spoilers for My Hero Academia, and maybe along the line there might be some spoilers for My Hero Academia Vigilantes. Who knows at this point where my train of thought will take me. So now, I think it's time to head inside. Alright, welcome to the bar, folks. So, Hisashi Midoriya. I know this is a topic that many a YouTuber have tackled before, and I really haven't actively chased down this theory either because, to be quite honest, there is no information whatsoever about Hisashi Midoriya. The one time that he's actually mentioned is in episode 1, so chapter 1 of My Hero Academia is the first and only mentioning of Deku's dad. So to infer more about this character, we have to use context clues instead. Follow me, I'll show you what I mean. Alright, so first things first, if you do enjoy the content here on the channel, be sure to subscribe. And if you want to join in on the premieres and come to the bar every time a new video drops, be sure to hit that bell. Now, where were we? Oh, yeah, that's right, Deku's dad. And before I even talk about relationships and whether or not him and Inko are really even still married, I want to talk about the real meat and veg of this theory, where Hisashi Midoriya is right now in current canon. Originally, I was saying that it was a possibility that Hisashi shows up in the World Heroes movie, but no, that's not a thing. So I had to go back to the drawing board. I had to possibly think, does Hisashi Midoriya not actually work for the government? Does he maybe work for a secret society that's protecting humanity behind the scenes? He is absolutely the most mysterious character in My Hero Academia. We know nothing about him besides the fact that his quirk is breathing fire. Also, we've seen that quirks tend to influence people's personalities, and if Hisashi Midoriya's quirk is breathing fire, I would expect this dude to have a hot tongue. And to be quite honest, we don't know the frequency that he's been home. For all we know, he was home 6 months prior to My Hero Academia's start. Now, if he's been missing for over 14 years, because by the time he's 4 years old, we know that Hisashi is probably not around as much, that's a completely different story. And because of that, we do not know how Deku will act when Hisashi is reintroduced to the plot. Because now that civilized society has more or less ended in Japan, there's gonna come a time where Hisashi Midoriya is like, I need to get home to get to my family to make sure they're okay. Because the fact of the matter is, as long as we've been reading and watching My Hero Academia, he hasn't shown up one time. That means in a year and a half, he has not gone home, which absolutely does make me think that he has been missing for 14 somewhat years. The relationship that Deku is bound to have with his father is not going to be like Ichigo and his father. It's gonna be like Suna and his dad. There is always a going competition for who is probably the worst father in shonen. And yeah, while Goku let his 11, 12-year-old son fight a world-ending android, Deku's dad could quite possibly be there for actually watching civilized society crumble into ruin and not reaching out to his family whatsoever. We have never seen Koichi's dad in My Hero Academia Vigilantes, but we've actually gotten a text message conversation between them to see if Koichi was okay. So this dude must be on some secret Black Ops mission if he can't even send a text message to his son just to be like, hey, you alright? Heard you broke both your arms. Some people might think of those moments as small and insignificant, but on the other hand, it's developing the world, it's developing your character, and for those reasons, sometimes I think Koichi is better written than Deku. When Deku thought he was gonna die, he thought of two people, his mother and All Might. His dad, nowhere in his thoughts whatsoever. So you really have to think, where could Hisashi be that he's indisposed for years at a time and can't get back to see his family? Because the first assumption that people tend to make about Hisashi Midoriya's profession is that he works for the world government, or he works for like the UN in some capacity as like a liaison for Japanese heroes. And while that's an absolutely valid idea, something kind of irks me because it doesn't really fit with Deku's personality enough. What I mean by that is a lot of shonen protagonists, you can easily break apart their character and get their parents. For example, when Naruto is cool, calm, and collected and actually thinks before he does something, he's more like his dad, Minato. And between Naruto's verbal tick, his anger, and his willingness to never give up, that's straight from Kushina. So essentially what I'm saying is, Deku's dad probably doesn't work for the government, but it's probably likely that he's a scientist. And when you're a scientist that goes on expeditions for years at a time, whether it be in the Galapagos or being in the Arctic, you're studying something that needs to be meticulously studied every single day to generate a baseline. That's honestly what I get from Hisashi Midoriya. And I stumbled across this train of thought while looking at this particular scene. At first glance, you're like, yeah, they're in Deku's room. But when you start looking a little bit closely, you see that there's a box on the bed and that there's a wall filled with volumes that kind of look like encyclopedias or research data. And this isn't just a family computer. This is a computer that's in a room that has a bed right next to it, meaning that this could be somebody's office that they have to sit down and rest and then immediately go back to work. Deku inherited that study ethic from somewhere, and my guess is it's from Hisashi. Because when you think about everything that's happened in My Hero Academia since March, Deku's dad has not contacted him in any way, shape, or form. I think it's possible that he could be doing a long-term scientific study for something. Japanese workplace stereotypes aside, if there was one profession that would require somebody to do a long-term study for over 10 years, it would be that of a scientist. And to add even further weight behind that, if he's taking 10 plus years to do this study, it means that he's working on something pretty extensive. Maybe it's possible that his dad is one of the authors on the Quirk Singularity Doomsday Theory. I'm just saying, I think it's more likely that he's a scientist on a long-term study than a military man or, all for one.
Oh really? You think that would be more likely?
You're really gonna heckle me at the bar right now.
How about instead of actually being a scientist, he just has a scientist on hand? One who is hundreds of years old, however old he is, however old he needs to be, because he's immortal. He can just keep aging, he just keep going, researching, figuring out everything there is about quirks, because you have him on your team. He's helping you make all sorts of nomus and things. That's right. You know where I'm going with this.
I know exactly where you're going. And no, Deku's dad is not all for one, dude.
I don't know when you're gonna stop being in denial, Dan. There is one true character who's been out analyzing and out planning and out thinking everybody in this series. Is all for one.
Alright, look, dad for one aside, do you think that Hisashi is more likely to be a scientist or a military man?
All for one theory aside, I do think it is very possible for him to be a science guy or like a mechanical guy, because I do think that, like you said, if you take the two halves of Deku's personality that probably come from his parents, just like, everyone else's parents do in the series, that you're going to end up a person who is very analytical like Deku, right? Like, we haven't really seen that from Inko, but you would expect that from Hisashi. And if he is that, and if he's working overseas, you would imagine that he's working overseas in a very, very analytical capacity, doing something where he has to think a lot, doing something where he probably has to look over a whole bunch of data or manage a lot of things or do a lot of planning. So I suppose it would make sense for him to a certain extent to be a scientist or a government worker or something like that, anything kind of in that realm. But, I hope we end up seeing what it is at some point, because if not, gonna have to default back to, it's all for one.
All right, yeah, I totally get it. I just wanted to figure out if I was crazy or not, to be quite honest. But honestly, thank you. And if none of you folks have heard about his dad for one theory, go ahead and click the card above. It's pretty wild. But he's right, we're pretty much asking the same questions, and we're kind of chasing ourselves in a circle with this particular topic because we want to know so much about Hisashi. And like I said, there's zero information about the guy beyond what his quirk is and the fact that he works overseas. So I guess, in a way, my theory is about as good as the guy guessing that he's the bad guy for the entire series. And one of the main reasons why I'm making this video is I absolutely want to know your opinion on the matter as well. I just heard Pineapples, he still thinks that All For One is Deku's dad. So at this point, if you tell me that Tony Stark is his father and somehow weave it into the plotline, we can assume that as well. The last real-life mentioning of Hisashi Midoriya is from Comic-Con back in 2018 when Horikoshi visited San Diego. And then he said that they were coming soon, and now that's almost about 4 years ago. I have a feeling that the introduction of Hisashi is just around the corner. The sheer scope of everything that's going on in My Hero Academia is bringing people out of the woodwork, so I wouldn't be surprised if one of those characters that emerges is Deku's dad. But I absolutely would like him to play a pivotal role in the story going forward, because the fact that he's been missing for 14 somewhat years or 10 somewhat years, whatever time he's been missing from Deku's life, to me at least, it better be for something significant. And put your tinfoil hats on for this one, because what if it's possible that Hisashi Midoriya worked for All For One, and whatever position that Hisashi is working in right now, he sacrificed the quirk of his firstborn son? That would be something really spooky that I wouldn't even want to tackle, so take those tinfoil hats off, we're done with that topic. So I think that's going to be it for this one. I put a lot of ideas out there, and if you agree with one or if you can expand upon any of them, please let me know down below. Hizashi is one hell of a mystery, man. And Pineapple, thanks for coming by, brother.
Hey, thanks for having me hopping in here, interrupting everything again. I appreciate you.
I'll catch you down by Glowing Donuts later. All right, so let me know what you guys think, and I'm gonna go grab some donuts. Cheers.